What's up, gentlemen? This is Rising Phoenix Podcast, the podcast about how to rise up after your divorce. I'm your host, Michael Rhodes. Let's get into it. Joining me today is Phil. Phil, let's just jump right into it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, Michael, thank you so much for having me first up. So I'm Phil McAuliffe, and I'm the loneliness guy and the lonely diplomat. And I am a study in human contradictions. I'm a dad, I'm a partner, I'm a brother, a cousin, an uncle, all these kind of things. I'm Australian. And I'm me. And that's something that I reckon we're going to have a bit of a chat about, is getting to that last part of all of that.
Yeah.
Which is I'm me.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a bit about let me cover first why I reached out to you. So I hear a lot of guys, and myself included, although I'm much further down the line in the process, a lot of guys struggle with loneliness and, I'm so lonely. And I was there. I was there. And, over time and sort of hobbies and books and whatever, lots of Netflix marathons, if I'm being honest, I sort of developed my own, I wouldn't say my own tools or strategies. I would say I just became more comfortable, but I think there are things that can be learned. So you are the loneliness guy. That is the loneliness diplomat, as you said. And so let's talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, like your story in particular, like why do you consider yourself the loneliness guy?
Yeah, of course I don't mind. So I took a long time to get to that last sort of phrase in my intro about being me. And so I'm now, how old am I? 44, and spent about 40 years trying to be all things to everyone else, while denying who I am. So I'm going to say I'm gay, and part of that being me is sort of accepting that part of me, my sexuality, as a part of who I am. It's not all of who I am, and I'm many other things. That goes into the study of rich human contradictions that makes up every one of us, but makes up me. But for the longest time, I was trying to be all things to everybody else, and I was. I found myself getting to my 40th birthday, desperately not wanting to be the cliche of having a midlife crisis. But that's what I did. But instead of a midlife crisis, it was a midlife opportunity. And I was desperately did not want to be the stereotype. But what happened, what I noticed was, I was living overseas at the time. I was living in Seoul in South Korea and had this great job. I was living overseas, representing my country, wife, 2 awesome kids, and living in, a fantastic apartment. Like we're all kicking goals in life, like kicking goals in my career and things, but I felt really empty, absolutely empty. And if someone could feel a void, then I felt a void. Yeah. Like it was just, the absence of something. Like it felt like at once life was happening to me, that I was, an actor in my own life, right. And that I was observing life, not actually living it. And to all observers, including myself, the life that I was living was successful. Happily married to a woman, 2 kids, great career, good money coming in, got, lots of overseas, international holidays, which, depending on where your viewer and listeners are, that mightn't be such a big thing if you're in Europe, like an international holiday. But when you grew up in Australia, when you grew up in a small country town in regional Australia, like, going on a big plane was and still is, a thrill.
Sure.
But, I felt like, I was sort of just observing life. And when I realized that, when I sort of recognized the void, I didn't know what it was.
Right.
But I realized that I didn't have, as a consequence of spending 20 years bouncing in and out of Australia for a few years at a time, I realized that it felt like, big difference between it felt like an actual reality, but it felt like within me that I had nobody in my life with whom I could pick up the phone and go, hi, like, we haven't seen each other for a very long time. We've not, I've not seen you physically, to have a drink with you or, have a hug or whatever it was for the last 7-10 years kind of thing. Right. But, hi, I'm feeling this void within me. Like, can we talk about that? No, you don't. You go through the motions, the small talk, the catch up.
Yeah.
How's the wife? How's the kids? How's the husband? How are the kids? How's work? All that kind of stuff. And then you just go, oh, well, I've got to go now. And so apart from my wife, I didn't have that support. And where I worked, it was full of, high achieving people, like very smart, high achieving people. I felt like, I am smart. I have achieved in life, but I don't think that I'm smart. I don't think that I've achieved. And, constantly felt out of my depth. And I recognize that for what that is now. And that's extremely common for smart people and high achieving people, that kind of not fitting in. But all around me, I sort of didn't fit in. I was sort of watching and observing and not really living my life. And then a couple of things happened. One was, I think I saw something in the media about like loneliness. And I'm like, oh yeah, and there is sort of this narrative in public discourse about loneliness as something that happens to old people. And, through the course of the pandemic, is, check in on the old people in your life. And because they've got to be feeling lonely and stuff. And so I thought, kind of flashed across my mind that, I might actually be lonely, but I'm like, nah, like, no one's died. Like, I'm not grieving anyone. I haven't broken up, like a relationship hasn't ended. And I'm not old, so no, I can't be lonely. And then a little bit of time went on and I was talking to my wife and I'm like, actually, I think I might be lonely. She's like, yeah, I've been wondering that myself. And so we kind of got to try and fix it. And, Google says, put yourself out there. And so I tried to put myself out there, and out there was in Korea. And so, I my Korean wasn't and still is not good. And, I liked swimming when I was, at university. So I started swimming. Swimming's great for fitness, but it's not a very social sport. Like, you can't talk while you swim.
No, you can't.
And, I like to talk, but I still have not mastered talking underwater.
Life goals.
And yeah, I'll practice until perfect. But yeah, and then, but I realized that, the conversations that I was having were sort of like, I was surrounded by small talk. There was so much small talk and it wasn't really doing it for me, but I really didn't have the language to sort of go, there was that kind of wanted more and got frustrated that, that what was supposed to fix it didn't.
So
And
upon reflection, I don't mean to interrupt you, but upon reflection,
that's all right.
that feeling of loneliness, would you say you felt that like your entire childhood and adulthood? Was that something like upon reflection, like, oh, once you named it, and I think you're getting to that, so sorry for interrupting, but once you named it, was it like, oh shit, that's what this has been that whole time?
Yeah. It was for me, it was the hustle to feel that I belonged. Always hustling, having lots of friends. And I was the kid. I went to a Catholic boarding school, which was 4 hours drive from my hometown, so where my parents were. And I got to go home like a few times a year, but home was some like a place where I visited, like it wasn't really home. And when I was about 14, so year 9, I kind of started realizing that kind of felt funny when thinking about other guys. And it was a Catholic boarding school in the early 90s in regional Victoria in Australia. And that wasn't the place to sort of go. That wasn't a safe space at all. It wasn't a safe space to be different. If you liked soccer, like it was Australian, it was a thoroughly Australian rules football school. So if you liked soccer, you were different enough. You were marked. And then, like if you were to say, I kind of like guys, like no, that was the hiding to nothing. So it wasn't a place to be different. And that applies to so many places where we grow up. However we're growing up.
Sure.
High school is not a place to feel different.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, like I had friends, but I never seemed to be enough. That, when invitations were being handed out for parties, particularly, later in high school, they always seemed to run out before getting to me. It's like, oh, my parents said I could only have 20 and, you were 21, sorry. Yeah, right. And, I was, friends with everyone, but no real friends. And so I became, awesome at, and I know this is really common, at putting a mask on.
Oh, yeah.
At creating the mask and we're like, oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. No, go and have fun. I got plans for Saturday night anyway. And no, I didn't. So I'd study or, I don't know, just, I don't want to say that I was a loner, but, I would feel hurt that, people who I thought were friends would not, like that wasn't reciprocated.
Right.
And then that feeling kept on sort of playing out.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was sort of a very common feeling.
Right. So you turned 40, you started being really sort of introspective and thought, I'm lonely. Let's get out there and try and meet people. And so what happened then, and what was the catalyst, I guess, to get you to ultimately end the marriage and then sort of embrace being the loneliness guy?
Oh God, like where to start? But after a few months, like swimming and still not being able to speak underwater, I reached out to my employer's counselling service, like the phone number kind of thing. And I remember I was sitting in my office in Seoul, and the service is in Australia. And the woman answered, and it was an Australian accent, like a real Australian accent. And I said, oh, hi, almost was going to say, I'm calling on behalf of a friend, because that's safer, right? Because it doesn't do to ask for help. Like, to be a man, you got to have all your shit sorted all the time, right? So, but it's okay to ask for a friend, because that's what friends do.
Yep.
But anyway, no, I'm like, I kind of sort of maybe think that possibly, just maybe, I might be lonely. And I remember, like, she's like, oh, you poor thing.
That seems not very helpful.
Oh, she sounded like arts. No, and I'm like, no, I don't want your pity. I don't want your pity. I want you to fix it. I want you to fix it.
Yeah.
And she then proceeded for the rest of like the free 10-minute phone call or whatever it was to tell me stuff that I could read, that I had read on Google. And the advice was, and this is really important, the advice was, put yourself out there. You got to put yourself out there. And I remember, I'm like, fuck, I can swear, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Good. It's like, fuck, like that's I could have, like, I know that.
Yeah.
But that's useless. I'm like, you've absolutely got no idea what it's like to be living my life as a diplomat, to be, and out there, pointing outside my office right now, out there is Korea. I don't really speak Korean. How's your Korean? She's like, oh, you'll work it out. And we hung up. I'm like, oh. Anyway, an idea was born. I got help, right? I went through a coaching program with Mike Campbell, and it was awesome. And as a consequence of that, and I was terrified, absolutely terrified of doing it, because I knew that there was stuff under the surface. But with that program, scratched under the surface, and we uncovered, we being me, him, and a group of awesome men, who I had absolutely no idea who they were. We each, in our own ways, on our own sort of shit, started working through it. And I realized that I was running from, that I was hiding from the world, including my sexuality, was actually my superpower. And it's hard to not sound coachy and kind of a hippie in saying that. But the thing that I had spent so much time hiding from myself and hiding from other people was the thing that made me awesome. And I started the process of showing up in the world as I was. Showing up, actively deciding each and every time it came to mind, I need to be me. And I am enough. Right?
Yeah.
And so then, realized that in doing that, I would sit in meetings at work and then look around and going, shit, they're saying and thinking things that I know is coming from a place of feeling unworthy. So then, started Googling, and loneliness and diplomats, nothing, absolutely nothing. So I'm like, I feel called to put my insight, my lived experience, my skills out into the world. And how could I do that? Big question, right?
Sure.
And so, started to listen to the voice within, et cetera, et cetera. The Lonely Diplomat was born. So started the Lonely Diplomat. And as a consequence of that, giving advice to other diplomats about how to be awesome at your job and be human, how to take the mask off of, and embrace your own humanity. While I was, kind of one or two steps ahead, doing work on myself. And one of the things within that was taking off various masks, and then one of the last ones to date, process is not done yet, was my sexuality. And so, my relationship was like, my marriage was awesome. And I still, have a relationship with my ex, but, co-parent, she's the mother of my kids.
Sure.
And she's still, a really great friend. But I didn't know how to say it. Like, how do you say the words that, I'm at least bi.
Right.
But I kind of feel funny when I see an attractive guy. And so, I was kind of waiting. And by waiting, it was like years.
Wow.
For the right words to come to mind that weren't going to hurt her.
Right.
Of course, that was never going to happen.
No.
But I love how the universe, again, hard to not sound like a hippie, but I love how the universe sort of gives us what we want when we need it, if we're paying attention.
Yep.
And I remember this, didn't know how to do it, but there was something on my feed from a guy called Mark Groves, who has Create the Love.
Yep.
And he said, there is no, like, every conversation can be made better when we approach it with kindness and honesty, starting with ourselves. And the light went on. I needed to be kind and honest to myself. And I needed to say the words, knowing that I couldn't control what happened after that, but I had skills within myself. I had a support network around me to help me out, and my values to help me out. So I did, and it was a horrible conversation. It was a horrible conversation, and but we stayed together for a couple of years, and it was great. It was awesome. And then a few years ago, like getting almost 2 years ago now, I'm like, kind of these aren't going away. I need to do something, but I don't want to do something from a place of like hiding it. I want to do something from a place of being courageous, not cowardly.
Right.
I want to be courageous. And she's like, well, I can't do that. I can't do that.
Right.
And we decided that we needed to separate. And it was something. Then having to come out to my kids,
Wow.
coming out to people around me, and then I started. I didn't know how to really be gay, right? Or to be me and gay, like allowing myself to be gay. And so I would meet guys, and I knew that I was me, and like a hookup wasn't going to be, exclusive. A hookup wasn't going to be my thing. I needed to connect with people. And so I had this rule that we would meet for coffee or a beer before like anything else would happen, anything sexual would happen, because I need to know that, you're actually a decent human, and then I'm not going to end up chopped up in bits in a freezer somewhere,
Yeah.
Within, a couple of coffees, right? Not within a couple, like within one, I realized that there were people who happened to be men, happened to be gay, who were really, really, really struggling.
Yeah.
And did not know what it was. Did not know. And it might not have been loneliness, but the hustle to be seen, the hustle to belong somewhere. So this is the big three things. So if you feel, listener and viewer, that there might be a void, it's like, remember this about loneliness and the need for human connection. every human needs to be seen, every human needs to feel heard, and every human needs to feel that we belong. They're the big three things that every human needs. And if we don't get those, all three or any one of those three, we do things to try and get that.
I want to dive into that in a few minutes, or however long this little sidebar takes. But as they do, the rabbit holes appear. I'm going to jump down one. So because I want to talk about, I want to talk about your coming out. Like that must have been fucking scary. And I admire your courage. I admire your ability to just do what was best for you. But I want to talk about not necessarily the logistics or the thoughts about specifically coming out, but just the fear behind it, right? Because I think I want to parallel this with the fear of asking for help, or the fear of letting go, even maybe possibly. Like there's so much fear associated with a divorce because it's a fear of the unknown, like what's going to happen. And it's similar to your, coming out. It's very, very similar. I see a lot of parallels. So can you talk about like how long did it take you? You kind of mentioned, but I want to really hone in on it. How long did it take you to once you even just decided, okay, I'm going to do this? And then how long did it take you to actually do it? And what were some of the things that sort of eventually got you to finally do it?
I think a couple of things there are coming up. It took me almost 30 years.
Wow.
30 years. And knowing, in my particular lived experience, it was about my sexuality.
Sure.
It was about accepting that I was lonely. Right? And they're as big as each other. Right? And so my coming out process was essentially coming out first as lonely. And you use the word, and I love this word. It's one of my 6 core values: courageous. Right? It took, if we can quantify courage, let's do it. But it took the same, if not more, courage to admit that I was lonely to myself. And than it was to admit that I was gay. Well, still am. I still am gay, but, right? And there's something in that. And in my work at The Loneliness Guy, I write about, like my whole purpose at The Loneliness Guy is to destigmatize loneliness and promote authentic connection. And I could have left it there as a full stop.
Sure.
But, I identify my audience for gay men globally, but it could be for humans globally, right? Right. It just happens to be some of the supporting words around that are particularly focused for gay men. Sure. But it's a human experience.
No question.
But this is really important. So, for the person, for the guy listening to this podcast or watching us now, that discomfort that we're feeling around our loneliness is real. And that's the stigma of loneliness. And that stigma can prevent us from asking for help. That stigma can prevent us from doing the thing that needs to be done. And I want to say this really clearly. It is easier, like there is more acceptance, in my experience anyway, there has been more acceptance coming out as gay than coming out as lonely.
Wow.
Not everyone, and because not everyone's gay, right? But we can say, the right sentiments, we can express the right things.
Sure.
It's like, good for you. I'm so glad that you could be you. Like,
right.
All for your happiness and stuff. If you say, yeah, just got something to say, I actually feel really lonely. Yeah. All of a sudden, right there, you are holding up a mirror and you saying to someone that I'm lonely can we please talk about that?
Hmm.
They're having a mirror held up to them about the quality of their connection in life and connection to themselves. And this is important because when we're talking about connection, which is the palatable side of loneliness, you can't have connection until you recognize your loneliness. Loneliness is the gateway to connection. But we hustle. We just want to leap right over loneliness into connection and have that solve it. Doesn't work that way. And when we're talking about connection, there's three things. I'm big on three things, right? It's connection to self, who you are, who you really are, who not you're pretending to be, not who you, words got mixed up there. Connection to those most important to you, and connection to community. And when we feel lonely, when we feel that we need connection, we go to the second two, right?
Yep.
And so, we essentially want to outsource our loneliness and the solution to our loneliness and put it on other people.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we're going through divorce and we realize, fuck, like I've spent 10, 15, 20 years, 2 years, whatever, like the duration of the relationship, putting this on her, on him, on, the community, and that gets taken away. If you don't have that connection to yourself, you're going to hustle to get it from somewhere else.
Yes. Fuck. I can't agree more. Fucking A. Okay. So let's talk about that. Cause that is such a fucking important point that guys miss. And you're right. They'll come into the group that I run and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm so lonely. Sort of almost like somebody fix me.
Yeah.
Totally understand that. Totally get it. I'm dating a new girl. I'm dating I'm on the apps, what do I do? And whoa, time the fuck out. So let's hone in on how do you connect to yourself? What do you do? What do you recommend? What's the best way for guys who are going through this shit to stop and start connecting with themselves?
You got it right there. Stop. Stop. And we are experts at numbing.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yes,
so pick your poison, right? So, you go like alcohol, drugs, like illicit and prescription, sex, gambling, porn, travel, cooking, whatever it is, like, but there's sort of more socially palatable ones, like work, busyness, right? All these things are designed to numb and avoid. So we need to stop. And at once, that's really easy to say.
Sure.
Oh, fuck me. It is so hard to do.
Fuck yeah, it is.
Because the doing of nothing requires no doing.
Yeah.
And as men, we're told that our worth is derived from what we do, what we achieve, what we earn, what we bring in, what we put out.
Yep.
And so the path to connection is stopping, listening to yourself. And this is, I still struggle with this at times. I'm a very pragmatic man, very pragmatic. And so I'm still trying to find the words to say this without sounding like, some kind of hippie Instagram philosopher kind of thing, right?
Yep.
But it really is getting quiet, keeping your phone in your pocket, turning the TV off, turning the radio off, stop doing, finding a park bench, sitting and breathing, like observing what's around you, and listening to your heart, not what's going on in your mind, because we are fucking awesome at listening and analyzing what's going on in our mind and thinking that we can, believing and thinking that we can outthink any feeling, that we can think our way out of any problem. And generally, we can.
No.
But here's the thing. Feelings are there to be felt. You don't think feelings, you feel them. Yeah. And you're not your feelings. Your feelings are merely signposts for you to pay attention to. In this past week, I've been really frustrated. Currently in lockdown here in Australia. Totally get the reason for it. Really supportive for it. Yeah. Okay, I want to say that really clear. But it's part of an obligation as a member of community to keep others safe.
True.
But I've been frustrated with, for instance, like where I'm sitting right now is where I've been working on my day job, like Monday to Friday. And, my commute essentially involves shutting down the screen and walking 2 meters. Like, that's it. I've really been missing that kind of wind up, wind down at the end of my day. And so I've been frustrated. And that frustration, when I realized that, I was like, okay, why am I frustrated? Why am I frustrated? Like, kindly, honestly having a conversation, kindness and honesty within myself. What can I do then? What do I need? And the same applies. Why am I angry?
Yeah.
What's been triggered?
Yep.
Like, why do I feel this? Doesn't mean that I'm angry. I'm an angry man. No, I'm experiencing anger. What's behind that? What's triggered me? And so in that advice of like how to, once we've recognized the void, or we kind of sort of maybe think that possibly we might be lonely, it's like, stop. And I found this great sort of meditation technique in a book that I read a few years ago. And, because I struggle still to feel my feelings.
Sure.
I'm much better at it, but I still struggle. And it's sit there, preferably shirtless, okay? But you put your hand on your heart, close your eyes and put your hand on your heart. And you listen, like in your mind, or out loud if you want, like who am I to judge? Say, what are you trying, heart, I'm listening. What are you trying to tell me? And I remember sitting down one morning, like early one morning, and sort of going, yeah, well, this seems pretty stupid. And I sat there for all of about 2 minutes. And for me, it was like this tiny little voice. And I was like, what was that? And then, anyway, like I was doing yoga at the time because, needed to, I found myself seizing up in my early 40s. And so I started doing hot yoga.
Nice.
And it was awesome. And like the last movement, I think it's asana, is Shavasana, which I nailed. I was awesome at that. It just involved lying on the floor on your back with your eyes closed.
I think I could even do that one.
I ruled that one. I'm like Australian. I'm like gold medalist at that. Anyway, the class ended and I sort of thought, right, rather than getting up and being busy and getting out and doing, I was going to lie here for just a moment. It was beautiful and warm. I was shirtless, like covered in sweat. It was bloody awesome. Loved it. And I thought, right, I'm just going to lie there with my hand in my heart. And it wasn't a whisper then. It wasn't a whisper. It was a fucking roar. It's like, you are enough. You do not have to hustle for acceptance anymore. Because I accept you. And I'm also not a crier. And I was lying there with my eyes closed and just sort of like going, what? Like, and I'm like, no, don't, like, just let it go. Let it go. And when I do cry, I'm an ugly cry. So nothing dainty about it. It's like snot and everything. It's like, it's a full body experience. I just let it go.
Yeah.
And it was like, just to know that whatever happened, and this was pre-separation, right? That whatever happened, I was going to be enough. That I accepted myself.
And I think what we're really talking about there is positive self-talk, right? I mean, that's, and not in a bullshitty way, but like a real genuine, like, I am enough. Whatever happens, I am enough. That's clearly talking to yourself in a very positive way. And so that must have been a progression, right? Did you have to like fight back? Like, because for me, I think the most important thing, I mean, there's so many fucking important things to life is fucking complicated. Let's not get that twisted. It's fucking hard. And then divorce, it makes it even fucking harder. But one of the things that I think is essential is to talk to yourself in a very positive way. And that begins with, I believe, noticing your negative. Not and you don't always have to improve upon it, at least, to start. It's not like, you got to fucking slam dunk right away. You got to go, oh shit, well, that's negative, right? You at least have to start there. Was that a progression for you to get to that point?
Yep. So while I rule it Shavasana as a yoga asana, I also am the global champion at negative self-talk, right? So, like, I'm happily would happily outcompete someone on the mantle of that, right? My inner critic is evil, and I've named him Joe after the kid who, in year 9, when I was 14, like bullied me mercilessly.
That's right? Fucking genius in a way. That's wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And like to the point of like bullying, like, and it was at boarding school. So it was at school and at home.
Oof.
Like, I could not escape it. The only way that I could escape it was to sleep.
Wow.
And even then I was fearful that something would happen to me while I was lying in bed. Right?
Yeah.
And, that was a 14-year-old kid who's still in me. And the armor that I put on to counter that was to be hail fellow well met, to be the people pleaser, to be the friend, to be the, the person who would drive you to the airport, to do like, to give absolutely no one any kind of reason to complain. Right? And me being driven. And it was to hide, absolutely to hide who I was, including my sexuality, including my intelligence.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And even now to say that out loud, how conceited is he? It's like, no, I'm smart. Like I'm smart. I like learning shit. I like, all that kind of stuff, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'm insatiably curious for more, constantly looking for different perspectives.
Yeah, me too. Same.
And that's a real strength.
Agreed.
Except when you don't fit in when you're 14. Right. And so I was on autopilot for such a long time, being absolutely driven by fear of Joe's judgment. Joe's judgment is my judgment.
That is so fucking profound. I think,
isn't it?
Yeah, there's something really, I'm a little speechless because I have negative self-talk. We all fucking have negative self-talk, but I think there's something really interesting about sort of naming it and placing it with someone else or something, whatever. Maybe you want to go fucking spirits or whatever the fuck you want to do. I don't know. But I think there's something very powerful about being able to sort of separate the negative shit from you. That's really fucking profound. I mean, I'm very good at catching the negative at this point. I think I'm pretty good at it, and I'm pretty good at turning it around. Not always. Sometimes, I haven't named mine yet, but let's call him Joe because that guy seems like a fucking prick. Sometimes Joe wins out, but not always. But at least I can recognize the voice, the negativity, and go, no, come on, man. And I think that is such a crucial part of all of life in general, but certainly getting through a divorce, because I think you're shattered, and you do, because you're left, right? I mean, in your case isn't the same, but like if someone were to leave you, then you take it. A lot of guys take that all on. Not every one of them, but a lot of them do that. Oh, it's all my fault. And so that's going to perpetuate up in here. And I think just being able to name it, it is crucial. It's absolutely crucial.
We're all, and I love this, and I got this from Mike Campbell. So that's like the footnote there to this. But we are 100% responsible for 50% of our interactions with one other person.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's power in that.
Yes. 100% agree.
And so when it comes to like thinking, feeling, back to that.
Yep.
So I'm 44.
Me too.
Right? It's awesome. And so what happens is that as rational 44-year-olds who have got a whole lot of life experience, we can think about what it's like to be and remember what it was like, what the things that happened to us as a 14-year-old or as an 8-year-old, whatever it was in our past. But within us are all those versions of us still. Yeah. And they are there. They do things within us to get our attention. And by stopping and sitting still and listening, feeling, and then with love, kindness, and honesty, and help, that we then get to explore what's going on and why. And so when they do then try to take the steering wheel and make decisions again for us, and I do this all the time when Joe pops up still, and I'm looking around at the desk here for like my work notebook, but I do this all the time. I will, be in a meeting saying some smart stuff. And then, flashing across my mind is like, God, you're full of shit. Like no one here likes you. No one here, like, they're just like, oh, yep, they rolled their eyes. Like you're boring them.
Right. No
one, and then that quickly escalates or descends into you're not worthy. You're not worthy of love. You're not worthy of belonging. Like you should just quit and fuck off. And when it gets to those three things, that's Joe. That's what the other 14-year-old was saying to me. Right? And so, all of this is happening in like, a split second in me. And I start to sweat. Like that's the tell for me. Like underarm sweat.
Mm.
I start to stammer over my words, like my throat constricts. And then I realize, that's Joe.
Mm.
And as I'm then writing down notes or something, put a square on the notebook and say, it's okay, Joe. Like, literally write Joe a note in that moment and acknowledge his presence. That he's trying to influence, he's trying to keep me safe by making me a small target. It's okay. I'm loved. I'm worthy. We've got this. I see you. I hear you. Because Joe is not like a third person. Joe is me. Let's just be clear. Like, there is power in naming it, but it's me.
Yep.
And on the real Joe, when we were 14, like the other kid, like I know now as a 44-year-old that he was a scared kid himself.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Struggling with his own stuff.
Yep.
Right? I know that.
Yeah.
But in here, which I had spent such a long time not listening to. And if I did listen to it, I tried to fix it myself.
Yeah.
And that's the path to disconnection. And so, for the audience, going through a divorce, it's like, feel the loneliness. Like, and that gives a very uncomfortable real life example, unwelcome example of loneliness, akin to grief of someone dying. Like the relationship has died. Yes. It is grief.
Yeah.
Right. So, there is grief, like loneliness coming from grief, and chronic loneliness that comes from disconnection from who you are. Right. Loneliness is loneliness is loneliness. When we get into competitive loneliness of like, well, I'm going through a divorce, so your disconnection with yourself because of your sexuality or whatever it is, that's not as worthy as mine. No time for that.
No.
However we get to it, we get to it.
Yeah. No, agreed.
But this is the thing. Loneliness is a gift. And what we do with that is up to us.
True.
I have some content on the loneliness guy from Christmas last year, which I think is like loneliness is a gift. And, and this whole thing of like, it might be the gift wrapped in shit at the back, back of, in the corner, like under the Christmas tree that, may have actually been there for quite a few years, but every time the Christmas tree goes up and then goes down, like it gets put away with all the rest of the decorations, right? But then it comes back out at Christmas and stuff. You need to reach in and accept that gift. When it comes out of grief, like that gift is just given to you anyway, right? You can go, oh, I don't want this, fix it, right. Take it from me. Right. But sit there, recognize that it's uncomfortable, but discomfort is not going to kill you.
No.
The stories that we tell ourselves about it, that will kill us. But loneliness doesn't care. We all feel it.
Yep.
All feel it because it's part of the human condition.
Yep. No.
And yeah, so when we do, like we need to accept it and go, okay, what are you trying to tell me? What can I learn about myself and authentic connection to myself, to those who I love, and those most important to me, and to my communities.
Yeah, I want to talk about,
until we get that, all of this doesn't make any difference.
Very true. No, I completely agree. I want to talk about just briefly touch on that sort of exercise? We'll call it a meditation. I think is a good word. I think that's kind of what it is. Is that how
Yeah.
often did you find yourself doing that? How often do you do that where you just stop and go, okay? Because I think it's important to do it pretty frequently, where it becomes sort of part of who you are. Like as the last episode that got released, and I don't know where this one will fall in the numbering order, but in episode 41, we talk about, or she talked about, just having check-ins with yourself. It could be it could be in the morning, it could be in the evening, it could be every hour on the hour. How often do you do those sort of little check-ins and little meditations, we'll call
them? Yeah, daily. And the trepidation in my voice is like, I know that I need to do it daily, whether I actually do it daily.
Yeah.
But at the when I do journal, I do the following. I brief recap of the day, hold myself accountable to how I've lived my values. So write my values out and then go, yeah, good day on this. I did this, yay me. Or I could have done that better. Flag that for tomorrow. I need to apologize or something. 5 things for which I'm grateful. And, oftentimes, it's winter here in Australia right now. Grateful to live in a house with heating, or something like that. And then it's a checking out. Like, how am I? Like mentally, what's going on upstairs? Emotionally, what's going on here? And physically, like, this is like the 3rd day in a row that my knee has been sore, or whatever it is, like, or, my shoulder, or whatever it is, like, I need to stretch, or maybe I need to go to the physio, or whatever it was. So, yeah, it's that kind of literally taking a breath and sort of like doing a systemic check through myself. Of paying attention to the stuff that's just going on in the background. I get great benefit when I do that regularly.
Yeah, for sure. It's in all of this stuff. I mean, a lot of things in life, it's not easy to be consistent, and it's not easy to do it all the time, but it's as long as you're aware that these are things you need to do and you're mindful, then I believe that you will eventually. That doesn't mean you're going to do it every fucking day or every hour or whatever your expectations are, but at least if you're conscious of it, like, this is something that I know will benefit me, so I'm going to keep it sort of up here and get to it when I can. We don't want to. I think there's a pressure to like do everything perfectly, and
God, no.
You can't fucking do that. So, but I want to talk about the other pillars of connection you talked about and how to develop those. You talked about connection with others, which is your loved ones, your friends. So how do you do that in a positive, healthy way? And then how do you expand your circle? How do you find others to connect with?
When we realize that we're lonely and we go, shit, like, lonely, must fix, problem, fix, right?
Yep.
And we leap for someone else to fix it. And we leap to like putting ourselves out there in the community. And like joining, I don't know, like doing charity stuff or something. It helps for a little while.
Yeah.
Right. But until we actually know who we are, accept who we are, and have done the work on pillar 1,
yep,
the rest of the 2 are doomed to fail.
True.
All right. And this comes back to that advice I was paying attention to, and I think we all pay attention to. And that really now, like, it was useless at the time, but my interpretation of it has changed. And now it's really profound. I was focusing on the out there. Put yourself out there.
True.
All right. The key is to put yourself out there. Emphasis on real, authentic self. Even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, even when it risks offending, even when and you know deep down within yourself that this is right for you. Not because what you're seeing other people do and you want to be accepted, not because you think that that's the right thing to say in the moment. Putting yourself out there requires such courage. Day in, day out, a commitment to be who you are, whatever that means. For me, it happens to be me, being me.
Yeah.
And all the wonderful studies of human contradiction that I am, the embodiment of human contradiction that I am, right? And that you are.
Yep.
Right? But when we put ourselves out there first under the first pillar, we naturally find that the second and third pillars happen almost effortlessly.
True.
When we show up, when we make a conscious decision to courageously show up who we are in that moment with ourselves, with other people, people respond to that.
Agreed. Yeah.
And the connection happens. And in, going out into the community, like, you might be, a member of a spiritual community. You might be, a member of a gym. You might be a member of like the local gay community or whatever it is. Like, the beauty of community is that you get to define it exactly like how it works for you.
Yep.
Right? It could be virtual, like online. It could be like where you are in the world.
Yeah.
Right? If you show up as you are in that moment and follow what's calling you, then that connection happens. But when we leap immediately to it and go, this is how you fix it, it can work for a little while, but unless you've done the work on the first pillar, and in the depths of the despair of divorce, that grief, that absolute, bereftness, and the questioning of like, am I enough? Like, I'm like broken. It's like, it's the stuff of life to begin with the help of other people. You fix your loneliness yourself. It's your loneliness. But the beauty of loneliness, and this is all that loneliness does. Every other story that we're telling ourselves about this, about how being lonely is like akin to being a broken human. Loneliness demands of us that we say, I need some help. And the connection happens in the beauty of that moment. Right? So loneliness as a feeling is akin to hunger when hungry. Right?
Yep.
We don't shame ourselves for feeling hungry.
No.
We don't say that we're a broken person because we need to eat. We go and eat.
Yep.
Thirsty, need to have a drink. Right? But that's what loneliness is. But because we've like built this whole societal thing around us that we always need to be popular, we always need to be like everything, we don't do the thing that loneliness is calling us to do. We just don't do the thing of saying, yeah, hey, I need to have a chat. This is what's going on. And then the other part of that is when we receive that call, we don't fix it for the other person. We listen and go, yeah, that's really shit. Don't really know what to say, but that's really shit. I'm so glad that you called. I'm so glad that you texted. I'm so glad that you sent that email. So glad that, we had that coffee or that beer or whatever it was. It's like, let me know if you need more.
Yeah. It's so, I do think the universe works in its mysterious little ways. And it's interesting that you bring that point up, because I think that I think as men, we struggle with this in general. I try to be more mindful of it, but some guys just aren't. And that's that's a thing, and they hopefully will figure that out and work on it. But it's holding space. It's allowing someone to just, because as men, we're fixers. Like, what, you got a problem? But I got, how can I help you? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I'll, you know, I got a tool bag. Like, what do you need? Like, and I think sometimes we just need to part of it is, you know, I don't want to say it's ego, but that's certainly probably a part of it. But so sometimes we maybe need to check our ego and go, I don't need to fix this. I just need to listen.
Yep.
Where I struggle with this is, you know, I see a lot of, so I run a Facebook group, and I think there's 4,800 men in there at this point, with 40 requests, 40 to 50 requests every day. There's a lot of men. There's a lot of divorce in the world. And I have guys that are distraught, right? And some of them are, I did nothing wrong. She left, and she's, you know, she's just out to destroy me. And I'm not saying their story is wrong. It's not my story to tell anyway. So I shouldn't can't judge it. Where I lose the ability to sort of help, I think, is in the instance where a man says, I did nothing wrong. I feel like I can't help that. I can't help that person, because there is no accountability. There's certainly, call me crazy, is no connection to self if you think you did nothing wrong. Like, I don't give a fuck what occurred. You're a human being, and by definition, you did some shit wrong, right? And so what would you say to that person? Because I sometimes it makes me so mad, because I want people to do better, but that's sort of one of the steps. It's certainly one of the most important steps. I don't know what fucking order, but yeah, I did some shit wrong. I got to fix it, because that empowers you to look at you, and then thus work on you, and then thus get a connection with you. But what do you say to a man that's, it's not my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. She's broken me. She's destroyed me. And I don't know. I can't, and I'm not even upset with her. It's fine. But it's fine that she did it. It's not her fault, but it's not my fault. It's like, it sounds like I'm fucking talking in circles, but I promise you this happens. So what do you say? What do you say to that man?
Yeah, I don't know if you can actually say anything except listen. Because if you say something and they're not ready, as men, we wait until moments before hitting rock bottom, where there is no other choice but to confront what's actually happened before we do something about it. It does not have to be that way at all, but that's how it is.
Yeah, and that's a struggle for me. Being a man.
Me too.
Right? Being a man. I'm Mr. Fix-It in some regards. Being that
and you
I'm
want to help.
Yeah, well, I feel like that's my fucking calling in life now. Like, my pain has a purpose. This is what I'm here to do. And if someone doesn't take responsibility for their own shit, I can't help you. And so then I worry about that person being in the community and tainting perhaps other folks who are then going to go like, oh yeah, see, it wasn't me either. Like, and then there becomes, and there's no lie. I have slight paranoia because I over fucking think everything, right? I'm sure that's very clear. But yeah, of course. But so then I worry, is that tainting the group? Is that the kind of person I want in the group? But I want to help. But to your point, like, if they're not ready, they're not ready. But like, I struggle with this one so much, and I just don't know sometimes what to do, because I almost feel like it's I don't know how I fuck it. I'm gonna say it. I almost feel like those guys shouldn't be in a support group if they're not ready. But then there's a part of me that says, this guy also said he was suicidal, and so what you know, I don't know sometimes what the fuck to do, but my heart says to me that number one, telling me you're suicidal, obviously that's obviously sort of a red flag and an alarm, but at the same point, not taking responsibility also says to me that there's some really crisscross fucking wires there, because if you're not the one who's at fault, then why would you kill you? You know what I mean? It's like why would you inflict the ultimate punishment upon yourself if you don't think it's your fault? So the part of me that thinks, and I'm just being real and being honest, because I'm struggling with this a lot lately. I posted a live video today where I rant and raved about it, because you can say a lot of things. She did this and this hurts and it sucks and my life is over and I can, and you know, whatever. All those things I feel like I can work with because they're lies that we tell ourselves. But when you say, I did nothing wrong, I can't help that. And if you're in a support group trying to get support, I would guess, then how can you be helped if you're in the wrong place? I don't know.
Yeah.
I struggle with this a lot. And part of me, again, and I'm ranting here a bit, but part of me wants to say, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong place. And when you want to take ownership, come on back. But then there's a part of me that says, well, what if this dude does kill himself? Like, could I stomach that?
Yeah.
And I don't know. And you're a person that coaches people and helps people. Like, do you ever struggle with, like, am I helping? Am I doing the right thing? Is this guy the one guy I can't reach, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for listening.
Because we want to help. We want to help. And again, it goes to that 100% responsible for 50% of the interaction. You can only show up how you can show up in that moment as yourself. And when you're dealing with men going through divorce, when you're dealing with men, like, the thing about loneliness is that it's an inconvenient truth. Mm. My audience, and I don't have a big audience, right? Right? Like, it's not big at all. But my audience tend to find me when they need to find me. Mm. And I know, because I've been there, that you reach out for help, you Google when the alternatives are few. And so I always start my content, like writing on the blog, speaking on the podcast. I recognize that pressing play, recognize that opening this up, you've had to wrestle within yourself about the thoughts and feelings of being a failed human. Like, you're in pain. I see you. Thank you for being here. Great things can happen. You're not broken. You're not a failed human. You're not unworthy of love and belonging. Actually, you're awesome. You do deserve love. You do deserve belonging.
100%. Yep.
You deserve belonging to yourself. You deserve belonging, like loving yourself, right? But when we're dealing with these topics of divorce and loneliness and the interconnection of them in the rich sort of tapestry of human emotion, like, these aren't like happy, joy. Like, I often say that I would have a far more successful blog with much more followers if it was hot, shirtless firemen holding puppies, right?
Very true. Very true.
Like, I'd actually be making some money. Like, or you know, and you know, engaging in a more positive way. Yeah, he's actually really hot, isn't he? That Dalmatian. Oh, like, no, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm not called to, you know, don't get me wrong, I like looking at hot firemen holding puppies. But you know, I'm only human. But we're dealing with men who are in pain.
Very true.
And in like my coaching work, I remind the guys when I hear that, Like, I'm just taking notes here for like to support other guys. I'm just taking notes and stuff. Like, great. You're going to be a great friend to them, but you're also deserving of the same love and support that you give other people. You're allowed to give that to yourself. But I can't force you to love yourself. I can't force you to listen to the wisdom that you're getting. But I will remind you to honor the part of you that made you join.
I'm writing that one down.
Yeah. Like the invitation to listen to that part of yourself that made you be here. And perhaps just for a moment, because you're in pain and you want to avoid the pain, that you go like, actually, like I'm in, the reminder that they're an environment that loves them, supports them, sees them, is enough. We do the 100% from ourselves, and then the rest is up to other people. As frustrating as that is. And honestly, like this is tragic. It's horrible, and it makes me so sad. It makes me so sad that some men decide to suicide or hurt other people and hurt themselves rather than facing the pain within them.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it too, is facing that pain. And perhaps that's why some guys are unable to take responsibility, because then it would be, they have to go, oh shit, what did I do?
Yep.
Well, Phil, this has been amazing.
It has. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can't believe it's been about an hour and a half already. I'm pretty sure we could do this for hours. So, and I know that we'll do it again. And not that we're going to completely wrap up, but there's the question, the big one. I feel like it's the big one. Is the one I always ask anyone that comes on this podcast. That could be a doctor to a financial advisor. What words of wisdom would you impart on a man who just is starting his journey? He just found out that she filed, or she's leaving, or she's telling him to get the fuck out. What are some words of wisdom you would impart to that man?
You are enough right now, as you are in this moment. You don't have to have the answers right now. And recognize that whatever you're thinking and feeling are trying to tell you something. And this is an opportunity, a shared opportunity, and a welcome opportunity to become yourself. Don't squander it.
Amen. I couldn't have said it better myself. How do
that off the top of my head?
That was brilliant, man. It's the truth. It's the truth. I say it all the time. This is an opportunity, and an opportunity you'll never get again.
Yeah.
Hopefully, to work on you, to find you, to be a better human. Period. It is an opportunity, and it should not be wasted. I couldn't agree more. How can folks find you? What's the best way to get a hold of Phil?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at The Loneliness Guy and at The Lonely Diplomat, but mainly through The Loneliness Guy, lonelinessguy.com, on Facebook, The Loneliness Guy, gay, straight, whatever, I don't care. The message is the message. And, if in the course of after listening to this, if people have got questions and they come through you, then, let me know and I'll happily jump in and do what I can to answer.
Yeah, I think what I may do, you said you're on Facebook, perhaps, and we can have this discussion a little bit more in depth, but it might be nice if I could bring you into the group that I have. I have two groups. One sort of more for the podcast, and one it's just for divorce support. I mean, they're related, but one's more focused on the podcast. It would be great to have you in there because guys struggle with loneliness. I see it all the time. So that would be great. I would appreciate that. Again, thanks. I really appreciate it, Phil. This was amazing, and I hope we could do it again.
Yeah, me too. And it was just really, speaking from here, just an honor to be here and share the space for a moment.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Take care. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. Thank you to Nick Coyle and Lifer for allowing me to use their song, Born Again, which you're hearing now and at the intro to the podcast. Thank you to Justin Dulahanty and all of my brothers at the Alpha Code. Please visit the website, risingphoenixpodcast.com, to connect with me and other like-minded men who are looking to thrive and grow after their divorce. And remember to surround yourself with people who add value to your life, who challenge you to be greater than you were yesterday, who sprinkle magic into your existence like you do to theirs. Life is not meant to be done alone. Find your tribe. Take care.